There we go. Awesome, awesome. Here we are again on the show.
I love that.
Oh.
It's one of my favorite songs.
I know. Going down the only road we ever know.
Good morning.
Like a pastor, we all know.
He'll be here all day.
All day. I'll be here all week. You can just drop your money in the little hat right in front of you. What are you laughing at?
Nothing.
Nothing. I have reverse music development skills. My brother says I practice reverse stripping.
Okay.
People pay me money to put my clothes back
Yeah.
on. So I do reverse singing. People pay me money to stop singing. So.
Anytime he sings, the kids are like,
Daddy, stop. Just don't do it, Daddy.
Daddy. Anyway.
Just don't do it.
Anyway.
Just don't do it. So anyway, well, good morning, everybody. Here we are again kind of new time frames. We're trying to get going about 7:30 because we're shortening up the length of the show. Quite a number of our viewers have asked us if we could try to stick it to 15 to 20 minutes. It helps them as they're at work and doing stuff. Good morning, Alicia.
Hello.
And as well, we're working on YouTube, trying to figure out how YouTube works and get things posted. I don't know if we can do there. I know there's YouTube Live, but I think we have to have subscribers.
Yeah.
So if you'll go
I guess that
to
would help.
if you'll go to Coffee with Brad and Selena on YouTube, and Selena will put the link down here.
Yeah.
If you'll go to Coffee with Brad and Selena and click the subscribe button, I think you said it's like if we get 100
I don't
subscribe.
know.
We're trying. We're still learning.
Research.
We are still learning.
I just don't know.
But we still would love you to subscribe. It
Yes.
does help us get found. Helps
Yes.
other magical things happen in these
Awesome.
mystic things called algorithms
We're
and
finding out.
stuff. Yeah, all this fun stuff that
Alicia
we're learning.
subscribed.
Oh, thank you, Alicia.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alicia.
You are probably the first one.
You are our most faithful watcher, one of our most
Yes.
faithful watchers, and we're
Yes.
so grateful for that. So with that, we're going to answer some more questions that have been coming in. Yeah, just the one. Yeah, because we're still having to post. So we're
After
working
the
on
fact,
post
we have
after
to
the
upload it.
And so we're trying to figure out the rhythm of life as we do stuff and get them up there. So we
Yeah.
will get more stuff up there on a timely manner,
Yeah.
and some other more YouTube specific content to come as well.
Yeah.
So we're just trying to grow and learn this again, just to explain why, just the nudging of the Spirit to serve you guys more, to take all that Father has so freely given us, and share it with you guys and put it out there in a way that is easily consumable, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Yep.
And stuff. So we're learning and we're growing, and we appreciate you all being on the journey with us and giving us much grace and patience as we learn what all this looks like.
Yes.
So,
absolutely.
but we've had another question come in, and this came from our Hispanic audience.
Yeah.
About early marriage, because we've been talking a little bit about we believe both personally and biblically, and it's being proved out statistically that being prepared for young marriage is God's better design. Now, with that, does that mean if you miss the window, you miss the boat? Now I'm an old maid or an old man. I don't know what would be an old man. I always have old maids, but what happens if a dude marries old? Is he an old?
We won't even go there.
Is he an old dude?
Because
it's
a bachelor.
He's a bachelor, I guess
bachelor.
so. Hey, well, there's got to be like
Confirmed bachelor.
a confirmed. Well, that's bad for you girls. We call girls old maids if they don't
Yes.
marry on time. But
It's
dudes, they're bachelors.
Yes, exactly.
No, he's just an old fart. That's what he is.
I'm gonna take a sip of coffee now.
That's just what he is. He's just an old fart nobody wants to put up with. So,
Brad Holland.
anyway, feeling quite spry this morning.
Uh-oh.
So anyway, but not saying that you have to marry only young and that it's a
No.
death sentence if you don't.
No.
We're not saying that.
What I'm saying.
What are we saying, dear?
What I'm saying is that we have shifted culturally in the last 50 years or so, 50 to 70 years, from having people get married in their early 20s. And it's shifted to now late 20s, early 30s.
The decade.
And all of that, from the very superficial stuff that we've read, and we haven't like dived in. This is not our master's degree, okay,
No,
at
not
all.
at all.
We just love to read. But it all comes from the whole, okay, let's push adolescents out a little bit
That's what I was-
longer.
yeah.
Okay, let's push out so that they'll be consumers a little bit longer, so that they'll be dependents a little bit longer. And now parents can go to court and fight, and the kids can be 26
Yeah.
and still be a dependent, and you're
Yeah.
going, in which world? Like,
Is this
where do we
normal?
live, right?
Well,
So that's what's been happening, and therefore everybody's pushing that later and later, and
Yeah.
we've seen so many people now in their early 30s
yes,
that we just got married and we want to still enjoy our marriage for a little bit before we have kids, and all of a sudden now they're trying to have kids at 33, 35,
it's too
but
late.
they've been on birth control for 15 years, and you know what? It's not working.
It's
So
not
we
working.
have to stop and go, what in the world are we doing? Like,
Yeah.
who gets to dictate this? And it's
Yeah.
actually something that has been purposefully designed
Yes.
and imposed upon our culture.
Well, and let's back up, because now you've opened
That's
up
what
a
I'm
new.
saying.
Well, I know.
You're welcome.
Well, so now calm
Yes.
down. I was having fun, and you got all. No,
Well, I
I'm
had
just
to
kidding.
get focused.
Well, I was still focused. I was just having fun while I was focused. No, no, but I mean, you make a good point. And so we'll see if we answer
Yeah,
his
we will.
question this time. Well, we may not, because it's. You're so funny.
I'm a rare form too, apparently.
Yes, apparently you are. And
Oh
so
man, this coffee is really good.
it's really good. I
You
made
put something special in my coffee.
just maple syrup.
Oh,
That's all I
that
did.
made all the difference. This is amazing.
But anyways, they
So-
pay attention to us and hopefully are having a good time.
Yes.
But I mean, you open a good point saying that we have to talk about that, because it's, culturally speaking, there has been an intentional cultural design to extend adolescence. And so I've done, like I said, we've read on this, and I've done most of the reading. So just to kind of talk about that with everybody, because that might be a new thought for some, because we just, in our generation, we just have grown up with it. So here's the thing. So the
Right.
term teenager did not appear in our cultural vernacular until 1947. According to what I researched, the very first time the word teenager was used in the United States was in a Reader's Digest from 1947. Now, from that point forward, as I studied stuff, it has been confirmed that it was a cultural experiment to extend adolescence, because we created a magical period from
Of time.
13 to 19 of extending childhood, because up until that time, it was, you were like more biblical. The Bible says, Paul said in 1 Corinthians 13, when I was a child, I thought like a child, I acted like a child, I behaved like a child. But when I became a man or an adult, I put away childish things. So the Bible talks about two distinct periods
Not
of
three.
development, not three.
Not three. Yeah.
There's childhood and there's adulthood, and those two things are distinguished by responsibilities and actions, or actions and responsibilities.
Right.
We distinguish childhood from adulthood by what, again, the Bible again says, even a child is known by his doings,
Whether there be right.
whether they're good or
Or
whether they're
pure.
evil or pure, right? So the Bible says even a child is known not by his age.
No.
He's not known by his grade.
No.
He's not known by
Yes,
his
exactly.
grades, meaning
No.
he's not he is known by his
Doings.
doings, whether what he does is good
Right
or
and
whether
pure.
it's in right and pure, right, good or evil. So teenaging, if you will, or this window of teenagerish was put in place to extend and give an excuse for childhood and immaturity to be extended. When historically and multiculturally, people knew, again, the classic example we might all be familiar with is the Jewish culture. When you hit 12, you had a bar mitzvah if you're a boy, or a bat mitzvah if you're a girl, and it was the marking ceremony
milestone
that you crossed over from childhood into adulthood. Most every culture besides Western European cultures have a marking time.
Yes.
When the young man or the young woman is leaving childhood behind and stepping into adulthood.
So even, and thank you, Alicia. Alicia says, I'm passionate.
Yes.
And so that's what,
Well,
no.
She's passionate.
It's a joke.
The liquor
We'll have to
store.
tell you some other Stop it. See what? Oh, okay. What was I going to say? You stinker.
I forgot.
Oh, where I grew up in Guatemala. Good morning, Steve. Thank you for
Good morning.
joining us. So where I grew up in Guatemala, there is childhood,
Yeah.
and then you are. It's not said this way, but you cross into adulthood around age 12, 13.
Yeah.
But then you're called a joven, a youth, if you're unmarried.
Married.
That's the only
Only.
distinction. So then, I mean, you might be a 30-year-old joven, but the only thing is, it's because you're
not
unmarried.
married.
It has nothing to do with the fact that you're a teenager. We don't even have that term in our language, right?
Yes.
So when I grew up, you know, at age 13, there's certain responsibilities that are placed upon you, and it's just because you're now 13
adult.
and you're an adult, and you need to start being really responsible with this and this and this, and everybody
Yeah.
who's not is looked down upon by society
Yeah.
because, oh, they're
Yeah.
not, you know, whatever.
Well, let me just, and we'll talk about this, and because we only got just a few more minutes, and we'll have to pick up some more on this. But it's important, I think, for us as parents to especially think about this. But I think as a church to be countercultural, because again, the culture thinks that, again, teenagers, we all know the stereotypes. They're lazy, irresponsible, disrespectful, rebellious. I don't know what
They don't have purpose.
They
They
know
don't know where
purpose.
they're heading. They're trying to figure themselves
Yes.
out.
Yeah, it's a big conversation here, but we have to address these big conversations because we can't be shocked when we get what we are expecting, even if we don't realize that's what we're expecting. Right? Let me say that again. You can't be shocked if you're just getting what you're expecting, even if you don't know that's what you're expecting, because you're just swept along in the cultural current of, well, they're teenagers, you know, they're going to lose their mind.
Yeah.
You know, they're teenagers, they're going to be stupid. You know, they're teenagers, they're just, and what Selena was talking about earlier.
Just like do this for 7 years
Yeah.
and hold on, right? And just breathe deep and you're going to make it, you know?
Well, now here, and to tie this, yes, the cultures always see, so it's good to know how other cultures do it. That's what Alicia just said, but it's also, we need to know what the biblical or the kingdom culture is. What is the kingdom culture about young people?
Yeah.
I think it's interesting, and we're going to go long. I'm just going to go ahead and say that now. We're going to go long.
Okay.
There's an interesting reality that we have 3 pictures of Jesus in the Bible.
Yeah.
We know, principally, we all know, and Alicia, a lot of parents are nervous for teenage years that are coming because we have a inbuilt belief, expectation that it's going to be terrible, rebellious, horrible. Just, you know, because you hear people say, "Oh, look at your cute little baby, aren't they cute?"
Wait until
just wait till they're a teenager.
Oh man, you guys.
You know, just wait.
Can we like please rebel against that?
Yes, let us please rebel.
Please, let's rebel against that. Rebel against the status quo.
That's right.
There you go.
So I think it's interesting that there's 3 images of Jesus. We know Jesus as a man between the ages of 30 and 33, his ministry and his life. The Bible gives us the classic Christmas picture of Jesus from birth to about age 2.
Right. Yeah.
Right? There's some imagery of Jesus as a baby.
Yeah.
Then the other window we see into Jesus's life, which to me is telling for what we're talking about, is we see Jesus as a 12-year-old boy. Right?
Yeah.
We see Jesus as a 12-year-old. why did God choose
that one window
that
of time.
window of time
Yeah.
to give us a picture of Jesus? And I think it's for the day we're living in today.
Yeah.
Hey, young people, let me tell you a picture of who you can actually be. Let me give you an image of your Savior at 12.
Yes.
Who was, again, without his parents' oversight in the capital city for 5 days. If you remember the story, they'd gone to Jerusalem. Mary and Joseph assumed Jesus was in the caravan going home.
Mm-hmm.
They get a day's journey away, realize he ain't there. So then they got to travel a day back, so there's 2 days. And then it says they hunted him for 3 days. So Jesus, as a 12-year-old,
Yeah.
was 5 days alone in the capital city of his nation.
Yeah.
And he wasn't being stupid, and he wasn't running amok, and he wasn't out
Helpless.
there helpless,
Crying in a corner in a fetal position.
It says he was about his father's business.
Yeah.
He was in the temple,
Yeah.
disputing and answering and asking questions.
Yeah.
He was being a man.
Yeah.
He was being about what his father can do. Listen, that's the image we need to tell our young people.
And then when Mary found him and they had that conversation,
Mm-hmm.
well, of course I'm doing my father's business. Why are you shocked? Then it says that he went back with his parents and was subject to them
Yes.
as he continued to grow and mature. And so there's that image again. Yes, he knows what he's about. Yes, there's purpose, but he's still under the tutelage of his parents until a specific time when he's just like, okay, now, right?
But see, that's the imagery. Guys, listen. And that's biblical imagery that we should have. What do I expect of my young people? I've got a 16-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a burgeoning 12-year-old boy. I expect them to be like Jesus. I expect them to be mature. I expect them to be productive. I expect them to be able to know, even if it's not as specific as Jesus did, to at least know I'm walking
heading
in a
this
certain direction.
Yeah.
Right?
They actually get really annoyed when people treat them like dumb teenagers.
They really do. And I'm so glad. What makes my
so
kids
glad.
mad is
I'm
when
sorry that it aggravates them, but I love that. That means there's success there.
they're doing great.
Yeah.
And so now here's some stuff. Now that's not just biblically, but culturally, historically.
Yes.
Now I'm going to tell you 3 stories.
Yeah.
Right? And then we'll land the plane after this. But they come from a book, and I recommend this book to every parent that has what we might call preteens or adolescents. Anywhere, kids 11, 12, 13, you need to read this book together as a family, right? It's called Do Hard Things by the Harris Brothers. And Selena will put a link in the comments, and you can, and hey, just if you would, the link she gives you, if you'll click on it, and buy from that link.
It's
it
an
helps.
affiliate
It's an
link, just so
affiliate
you know.
link. Just so you know, it's an affiliate link of ours to Amazon. If you click on that link and buy in that link, then it helps us do this show.
At no extra cost to
No
you,
extra cost to
obviously.
you.
Yeah.
It just gives us a kickback, and
Yeah.
so we appreciate that. So there's your little PSA. But in this book, public service announcement.
Okay.
It's-
ESL here. What is ESL? No.
English
as a second language.
Yes, and so
I'm sorry, keep going.
So in this book, and I forgot what chapter it is, but they talk about the view of young people historically. So they tell the story of 3 young people, 3 teenagers.
Yeah.
Right? It says this. One of them, it's a young man by the name of George. And when George was 17, he and a group of other young people about his age went out and surveyed a large tract of land in our nation. Right? They went out, and at that time, this would have been historically, at that time, this large tract of land we're talking about, this was several thousand square miles. So we're not talking about they went into the neighborhood,
Backyard.
into the backyard. They went into what at the time was the wilderness with hostile natives, with wild animals, with no Walmart on the corner, no 7-Eleven to get a Slurpee. They went out into the wilderness for months
And
and surveyed and made a map of a huge chunk of our nation when he was 17.
Yeah.
Now, there was another young man by the name, and this is one that always got me, by the name of David. And his name was David. When David was 11 years old.
That's my son Caleb's age. Okay,
So
I'm over here going, wow.
When David was 11 years old, he was in the American Navy at the time. He was given command of his first vessel. It was during the War of 1812. An American vessel had captured a British vessel, now catch this, off the coast of Peru, which is on the western side of South America.
It's way down there, guys.
And so they captured this boat. The captain of the American boat gives David, who's 11, command of the captured boat and says, I need you to sail it back to Boston as we keep going on.
Y'all.
So David takes command. He's got soldiers, Navy men under him. He's got prisoners of war on the ship. They're sailing back. The captain of the British ship hears that it's an 11-year-old who's in charge, and he's going to up and show off and take his ship back.
Mutiny.
And David Farragut has a gun, looks at him dead in the eye, and says, if you or any of your men step foot on the deck of my ship, I'll kill you where you stand. And they sail the ship around and land. He's 11.
Right.
Now, here's one, just to not leave the girls out. A young girl by the name of Clara. When she was 14, her village contracts smallpox. She had had it before, if I remember the story right, so she was immune. She ends up taking care of her entire village. She later ends up taking care of her brother because he fell off a barn and broke his body up real bad, and she brought him all the way back to health. Right. Later, this is 14.
Yeah.
She's the general nurse of an entire little town, and she brings her brother back. Now, let me tell you their last names. George, who was 17, his last name happened to be Washington.
Yeah.
George Washington, our first president, got started when he was 17 as a map maker, and he mapped out what became Virginia, West Virginia, parts of Pennsylvania, and parts of Ohio.
Wow, right?
Right. David, his last name was Farragut. David Farragut is the granddaddy admiral of the American Navy. And when he was 11, that's when he took command of his first ship. Right. And he went around the Horn of South America at 11. Right. That's when his life started. Right. Clara happened to be named Clara Barton. She became the founder of the Red Cross. She started when she was 14. She started nursing school that became the Red Cross when she was 17.
Right. After a few years of teaching. And when she started a whole school in a district, but they told her, well, you can't run it now because you're a woman. She's like, okay, fine. I'm going to go do something else then.
Now listen to me.
Because I started this. I raised the funds for it, and she was very young.
So here's the thing. Biologically, those young people, again, an 11-year-old, a 14-year-old, 17-year-old, biologically, they are no different than our young people. They're humans, same developmental track, same everything. The only thing that is really different between that day and our day is what the culture expected of them.
Right.
In their day, the culture expected them to cross over from childhood into adulthood
and rise to the
occasion and to be responsible contributors to their culture and to their country. Right now, we have an expectation that they're going to run around like a bunch of idiots
until they're in their mid-20s.
And what Selena was saying about mid-20s is, I heard when we were living in Canada, I was at a custody battle in a courtroom in Canada,
being
supportive of another. What was George Martin's sister? I don't know. Was she? No,
that was Clara.
That was Clara Barton. It wasn't George's sister, but her name was Clara Barton. And you can read it. It's all in that book, Do Hard Things. And I love that book that the Harris Boys wrote. Now, here's the thing. The Harris Boys, they wrote that book when they were 15, 16, somewhere in there. Because when they were 16, they came to Alabama as
interns.
Political interns in the Capitol in Montgomery and helped write law. at 16, because basically they must have wrote this book when they were 14 or 15, and basically somebody from Alabama said put up or shut up, as we're likely to do, and those boys came down and they did great. It's all on expectation.
Yeah.
Right, but back in the courtroom in Canada, I remember sitting there in this courtroom waiting for our church member's case to come up, and there was a case before them where there was a young man. He was 26 years old, and he was filing complaint against his father because his father stopped paying child support. And basically, I heard with my own ears the judge say, as long as he goes to college 2 days a semester, he's still trying to discover himself. So, Dad, you're responsible to pay for him, for his life, until he finds out what he wants to do. And as long as he goes 2 days a week 2 days per semester per 6 months, and the journey of discovering himself, he's still a dependent on you. And I almost wanted to stand up and scream and go, the dude's 26.
Guys, seriously.
26 years old. You basically said he's a child.
Yeah.
Right? And this is what is pernicious and pervasive in our culture.
Yeah.
And we have to renew our mind
Yeah.
to the because unfortunately, most of our young people, they're only rising to the level of our expectations. We expect them to be this way, so they have no other recourse.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I heard one of our preachers one time say about his wife, or his neighbor had a yappy dog, because everybody expected it to be a yappy dog. And he says you could watch the dog stand out on the front porch and bark and have no idea why it was barking. Because it was just yip, 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 yip. Nothing there, no birds, no nothing. Yip, 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 yip. And he says, I remember thinking, it's because they expect it to be a yappy dog.
Yeah.
So it's standing out there, cannot rise above the expectation of its master. It barks at nothing. Guys, listen, in many ways, our young people, they're just rising culturally to the level of our expectations.
Yes. Yeah.
So we need to change, especially us who are Christ followers, change our expectation of our young people.
Yes.
It begins always with us.
Yes.
Before I talk about behavioral shift in my kids, I have to first really look at Brad and go, what am I expecting?
Yeah.
What am I thinking about my child? Right? And have I slipped into the cultural current in any way, or am I continuing to think? Right? So anyway, so this is a little bit longer than we meant, but it was a good track to run on. We love all of y'all so much, and just appreciate it. Again, if you're on YouTube, hit subscribe and the little bell. If you're on Facebook, keep talking with us, communicating with us, sharing this out. We just so glad to have you as part of our online family.
Yes, and I see some questions and whatnot. We'd love to answer those questions possibly tomorrow or inside the comments. So we will get to it.
Yeah, if you keep putting stuff in there, we will answer them live, just in the order that they come in. So we're working through questions as they've come in. We'll just keep talking it out as it goes.
Awesome.
So, all right, love you guys. Have a great Thursday, and we'll see you tomorrow.
All right.